everybody. This is Navigating the Sales Jungle of Business. And with me today is a wonderful sales expert, Robert Gillette.
Thank you for having me.
And let's start with, I know that you are an expert in sales, and I'd love to hear what provoked you to go into sales in the first place. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, like most sales guys, I found my calling after a grueling search for something because it wasn't working. So I'm a third generation sales guy. Grandpa did it, dad did it. I never ever wanted to go into sales. It just was, that's not what people, in the millennial generation really ever aspired to do. And so I spent the vast majority of the beginning of my adulthood trying a bunch of different things. I was a project manager. I was a photographer. I owned a retail store. I was in construction. I was all over the place trying to figure out what would make me happy. I didn't just want to make money. I wanted to be happy making money. And eventually I applied for a job. I was kind of headhunted to come work for an outsourced IT company called it's an MSP. And I was convinced by the CEO that what I had been doing was sales my whole life. Although it wasn't necessarily.
It kind of got you, kind of not wanting to follow in your grandpa's footsteps. And
yeah, I finally caught up. I was like, and I said, like, man, I don't want to be in sales. This is, and then he kind of convinced me, whether he knew it or not, to give him a shot. And I saw the kind of man he was. He was charismatic. He was smart, an incredibly good decision maker, a challenger. He just, there was something in him that I'm like, I want to be more of that. And so I took a job in sales at his company, and about 3 or 6 months into it, I finally understood, like it finally clicked for me that it might be possible that my highest and best use to other people might be sales, which was a very weird way of thinking about sales for me, because I never saw or never believed or understood that the ultimate version of sales is about serving others. And we usually think of sales
let me interrupt
as like, yeah, go ahead.
I am an interrupting pest,
Do it. I love it.
You know how some of the kids' books talk about interrupting pests? Well, that would be me.
Yeah.
So the way you describe your grandpa is the way I think of you. So I couldn't help but interject because you have all that charisma. And I've known you for a while. So to me, you are the ultimate salesperson. And, some people think of the salesperson as getting the foot in the door and pushing the door open and wanting to sell encyclopedias. That's never been you. You do love serving people. So the journey started with your grandpa in his.
Yeah, grandpa did it. Yeah, my grandpa was, he was a 30-year, I think he worked at the same company his whole life. Wow. 40 years, 30 years, something like that. A company that's not even around anymore, like Monroe Calculators, and sold the world's first calculators, to CPA firms. And it was and he just did it, and he grew to be a big part of that company for his whole life. And then, my dad did it, and he sold software, when software was just a cutting edge kind of thing. He sold, MRP systems, and it was just a unique thing. And it's so funny because I have always my whole life respect and revered both my grandfather and my father. But when I thought of me going and doing that job, I was faced with the societal ethos or the societal persona of what a salesperson is. Could sell ice to an Eskimo, which to me always seemed like ripping off an Eskimo. But it was really funny when maybe a year ago, I actually heard a guy say like, I sold refrigerators to Eskimos.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, because you don't understand. It gets below 40 up there. And if you have food that you want to eat, like salad, you can't just leave that out. You need to put it in a refrigerator so that it doesn't get too cold and die. So apparently Eskimos do need refrigerators. And it was so funny because I remember in my 30s, it's like I had built this barge in the middle of the ocean that protected me from this sales function. And I was floating through the world on this barge. And then this job at 33 or 35 or whenever I was when I took it, just put a torpedo directly into the side of that, blew it clean away. And here I was kind of drowning in this ocean of sales. knowing that it's where I needed to be, but, you know, having to learn how to do it.
So how did you learn how to do it? Tell us some of your journey
Yeah.
and learning, because you know we love always be learning. That's part of our ethos
Mm-hmm.
of our business school. So tell me about your journey. I'd love to hear that. How did you learn?
Yeah. So it's, you know, training, coaching, and consulting. That's the three buckets that I just feel like every person needs. You know, to use a football parlance, somebody has to teach you how to hold the football. If you're going to be a quarterback, somebody's got to teach you how to hold the football, how to throw the football, how to run, you know, how to scramble out of the pocket, how to play the game. Someone has to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to go do it. And someone has to watch you do it and give you feedback on how you're not doing it well or how you are doing it well, where you're strong, where you're weak, and kind of mold you as you go try the thing you've learned. And then consulting is, I'm the coach. I know how to win a football game. Do what I tell you to do and you'll win a football game. And so I needed the training. I needed to just consume the raw materials like books and programs and courses. I just needed that. I needed to consume it and process it and try and turn it into my own. And then I just needed practice. I just needed to dive in.
So you know
Yeah. And
what?
just,
The hardest thing
yeah.
from what you said was the feedback part. Even when you learn how to
Mm-hmm.
be a coach and you have to coach in a room full of other students and you have to coach someone, it's really scary. I remember the first time I had to do that and I missed something.
Mm-hmm.
You know that an emotion, when someone's crying, you know that's an emotion. But you know what I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know? That when someone laughs, it's also an emotion. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
a laugh is like, could be a nervous laugh, could be whatever. So the feedback to me, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to sell, how does that feel when someone gives you feedback? You need courage.
Oh, yeah. And it depends on really even, so it's because it's not just about a coach. Every football team has a coach, but only one of them wins a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's like, it's important to understand that like there's good coaches, there's bad coaches, there's winning coaches. There's more the point is like from the standpoint of someone who's trying to be excellent in sales, someone who's trying to be that perfect servant leader in a sales role. Like people can tell you what to do all day long, but until you go out and do it, you have no idea if you're any good at it. And then you go out and do it and do it and do it, and it's not working and you're not getting progress. And you're like, I don't understand. I'm doing what they told me to do. And if you're not getting, first of all, the repetitions, and then someone to look at you and say, yeah, of course you're doing it, but you're doing it a little bit wrong. Or you're trying to be something you're not. You're saying the words, but you're not authentic because those words don't line up with your beliefs. So how do we achieve the same thing, the same outcome? How do we get from A to B? But instead of going this way, we go around this way because that's what's authentic to yourself. Like, who's going to do that for you? And how are you going to get that done if you don't practice and you don't have someone to watch you? So that's the second part is you got to have good coaches.
And is there a particular process that you like? Because I remember when we had our last conversation, you started off with like the opening contract. I forget if that was the wording, but could you
Yeah,
share
that's
some of those
that's
tips
certainly
for us?
a tactic that's very common and popular. It's the I think what you're referring to was the upfront contract, which
Yes.
is a Sandler sales technique. And I think this is one of those really important kind of moments is that everyone is looking for the technique, the program, the system. Just give me the golden ticket. I'll pay you any amount of money. Just tell me how. And if I believe that how works, I'll give you anything. We know what the what is. We know what the why. Give me the how. I'll pay for the how. And
Mhm.
that's one of the challenges we have is that the how is realistically at the end of the day, your own unique lottery ticket. Like
Mhm.
you just have to, there is absolutely nothing I can or anyone can give you that is 100% guaranteed to work. Chances are, if you're like most of the salespeople I've met, whether you're a business owner or you're just starting out, 22 years old, fresh out of college, trying to make your money, you're going to have to build your own system. And the building blocks will be pieces of knowledge from other people that you have practiced under the guise of a coach. And that coach will tell you what's working for you and what isn't. And then you'll build your own sales technique. And yeah, like mine personally, I'm about 60% Sandler, about 10% spin, and about maybe 30% challenger sale with probably some other stuff that's too small to even like measure and put together, you know? And that's just the way I explain the way I do what I do. But there's lots of people that have a different makeup of their sales technique. But what they have figured out is what works for them, what's authentic to themselves, what allows them to operate as the way and the person they want to be when they go to sleep at night, and still accomplish this goal of ask people for money, try and sell your product, try and serve people so that you're not just making sales today, but sales 3 years from now because of the way you sell today. Like that's your own unique lottery ticket. You got to put that together yourself.
And you know what? Everybody's a salesperson, because if you're not selling a product or a service, you're selling an idea, right?
You know, absolutely. There's a book by Daniel H. Pink, I think. Daniel Pink is how I know him. It's called
Yes.
To Sell is Human. He makes a really strong case for the fact that 40% of our time in our job is spent doing sales, persuading, convincing, making cases for, trying to change behavior, trying to reallocate resources. All of that is sales. And what I found is that even the best politicians are salespeople. They're people that understand how to appeal to a person or an organization or a constituency, help them understand why they would do something, and then show them how to follow the path of redirecting their attention or preference or resources or loyalties to achieve what it is they really want. That's sales.
And
I just don't know another word for it.
well, and in organizations, if you want to sell an idea, you have to know who your audience is, like any other sale. And you have to know, for example, I use DISC because I know that if I'm talking to someone with a D dominant, I need to just the facts, not too much chit chat before, but go in really prepared with all my bullet points so that this person can listen to me properly. And then I know if I'm talking to my ex-husband, for example, I have to be able to say, may I have 5 minutes of your time? I have to tell him how long I need to give him my idea. So he's not wondering, okay, how long does she need to talk to me? That kind of thing. I sold him on a pretty major thing, Robert. I sold him on having holidays the week before the holiday. So all of our 5 children and their offspring, etc., can show up. That's a big sale, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, my wife figured out how to get our kids to eat raw bell peppers. Still can't get me to eat raw bell peppers. It's one of their favorite vegetables.
Wow.
You know, and I power to her for doing it. It's amazing. They're going to be set up real well for life. But you know, I watch my wife who the idea of going into a sales job would be abhorrent to her. But I watched her sell vegetables to my kids systematically over the course of years. And I'm telling you, I plopped down in front of my 7-year-old and 5-year-old children 2 days ago a big plate that was 50% cucumbers, bell peppers, carrots, and they literally both went, "Yay, charcuterie!" And I was like,
wow.
"What? Okay, sure. Hey, whatever you. I'm just happy you're eating your vegetables." That's sales. She sold them on vegetables. So
that's awesome. So I know you have a business called MSP Dojo. For the uninitiated, what does MSP stand for? And tell us about your dojo.
yeah. So MSP colloquially stands for Managed Service Provider. Now, there's a lot of companies that consider themselves managed service providers these days. So if I were to get more specific, it's IT support companies, either fractional IT support or whether they replace or augment an IT department, that kind of a thing. But basically, fix your computers, make them break less, that kind of stuff. They're companies that center around that IT consulting or managed security or whatever. And it's really interesting because very pursuant to what we've been talking about, when I left my day job selling IT support services for an MSP, within a couple months, I think 4 of my local competitors had hired me. And people that, they said, "Hey, Robert, to be frank, you've been kicking our butt in the market. Come show us how to do what you're doing." And I was honored and was exciting, but I immediately hit the same friction point and problem that my jujitsu coach had with me 5 years earlier. So 5 years before that, I had started taking jujitsu. and I'd never done any kind of sport like that before. And I told him, hey, I'm not going to come to the classes with all the people because I'm in sales. I can't like have a broken finger and a black eye
Right.
because some 24-year-old that wants to make the state championship kicked my butt. Like I can't do that. So I'll come to private classes. So I paid him a bunch of money, came to the classes, and after 3 months, he said, we can't do this anymore. You can't be my student. I was like, well, why not? I'm coming. This is fun. I'm learning stuff. And he goes, yeah, but you're not learning jujitsu. I don't know what you're learning, but here's the problem. You're never going to surprise me. Everything you know, I taught you. And also, I'm not going to kill you. I could. We're in the gym alone. I could choke you to death and no one would know. And there's nothing you could do to stop me. But I won't do that because you're my student and you pay me money. I need you to go to a class so that a 24-year-old kid trying to make state can try and choke you to death and you can try and surprise him. Because until you're in that environment, you're not really learning anything. Because it's not jujitsu, because you're never in danger and you're not surprising anybody. So he made me go to the classes. And I had the same problem with my coaching clients, which is I can tell you what to do and we can practice it, but I'm not going to hurt you and you're not going to surprise me.
Right.
So I created the MSP Dojo so that my clients could practice together and get that real live experience against their competitors, where their competitor is playing the prospect and another competitor is critiquing him, so that they're getting a high pressure real life example of the tactics I'm trying to teach them. So I created the MSP Dojo, put my 4 clients in it. They loved it. It catalyzed everything they were learning. Over the course of a couple of months, some other people that either couldn't afford me or I couldn't take them on because of capacity also ended up joining the dojo. They loved it. And so in July of 2023, about a month ago, I built out an infrastructure so that I could bring in 200 MSPs. That's so I can build about to 200, and that's what I'm looking to grow that to right now. But all it did for me was it brought together for me a deep emotional connection to something I already knew was true, which is you can know what to do, but until you go do it, you have no idea if you really know it. So the example that I'm working with these days is I can teach you how to hold, maybe not me, but someone can teach you how to hold a baseball bat, where to put your feet, bend your knees, line up the knuckles like you're knocking on the door, push with your back foot and follow through with the elbow down. I get it. But like you would never spend a week teaching that to a person and then put them in a baseball game.
Right.
What you would do is you'd spend a week teaching that to a person and then you'd put them in a batting cage and you'd have a machine throw 1,000 of the same pitch at them while they learned how to do the movement of the thing their brain understood. And so that's what the MSP Dojo is designed to do. It's like, I don't really care if I'm coaching you or you read a book or you're with one of the 12 other really famous people that'll teach you how to sell MSP services. Whatever you're learning, come here and practice it with us. So you're never practicing on a prospect. That's kind of the premise behind it. And it's been resonating really well.
You know what? I love that idea because a lot of CEOs, for example, are in peer groups and they learn from each other. But this is a whole different take on that. And I think having that many people involved, they probably relax into it. In the beginning, they probably feel really shy, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely like getting thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
The good thing is there's a lifeguard, but you know, you're definitely, there's no playing around. There's no kiddie pool, right into the deep end.
I love that. And you also have reclaiming sales coaching. So what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so it's very much like the reclaiming sales is the traditional sales coaching you'd get from a fractional VP of sales or a chief revenue officer, or like, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to teach you how to hold the football, teach you how to run a play. I'm going to teach you how to do the holistic sales process and how to build a revenue engine or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is that company's missing. And a small piece of that is go practice it, go try it.
So is that the lead in to the MSP Dojo? I mean, like start here, go there next.
It could be. It really depends on the company. And the great thing and the thing that I love about the MSP Dojo is I'm working with probably a dozen other sales coaches, people that are technically competitors to the reclaiming sales business, but you know, they're in a similar situation as me. Look, I've got a course you could buy. I've got some coaching you could do, but realistically, you're going to choose me because of who I am. You're going to like my style. You're going to be willing to listen to the way I say the same thing everybody else says. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. I don't know what the first job in the world was, but I'm pretty sure the second one was sales. So like, we've had sales as a part of our society as far back as we can imagine. It's not going away. And I'm sure that while it has evolved over time, humans are pretty much the same. So sales is pretty much the same. The key is finding a messenger who you can accept the message from. And so, yeah, maybe I'm the guy, but maybe it's one of these other 12 people. Find a messenger you can listen to the message and then come practice.
So would you do me a favor and just give the first part of the sales pitch? I'm on the phone with the CEO. Where do I begin? That first opening contract, just that little piece.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Okay. So are we talking about I just want a little more context. Am I cold calling you? Is this an official meeting that we've set up, like a sales meeting?
Yes, you have just accessed my calendar and we're having a conversation.
Okay, got it. Hey, Frumi, thank you so much for taking the time today. My calendar says we have about an hour for this. Is that still the time, or do you got to leave early?
Nope, that works for me.
Okay, got it. So what I'd like to do and how I usually run these meetings is I'm just going to start off by asking you a ton of questions. I want to make sure before I recommend anything or try and sell you anything, I have the good grip handles on your business and what you're trying to accomplish. If it makes sense, then I'm happy to tell you all about the problems I solve and how I solve them and what I charge and all that stuff. And then if it makes sense, what we can do is figure out how we'd go from where we are today to possibly engaging my services, like what the process would look like, what you need to learn, who you need to talk to. But what I'm hoping to do is by the end of this hour, what I wanted to do is figure out, should we continue any of that stuff? Or have you learned what you needed from me and we can just end the conversation? Does that sound like a good way to finish our meeting?
That's perfect.
Okay, cool. So that, as you mentioned earlier, that is an upfront contract. This is a Sandler sales technique. I'm sure he stole it from somebody else too. Essentially what we're doing is, how many of you have been gotten that invitation from someone? Hey, I'd love to grab coffee after our provisors meeting or after our networking event, or when you're in town next. And we sit down at a coffee shop or we invite them to our house. And about 40 seconds in, you go, crap, I'm in a sales meeting. And now you got to just grit and bear it for another hour while this, let's say, life insurance person you knew from high school is going to try and sell you whole life insurance. And it's just, you weren't even aware, you stepped right into the trap. What the challenge with that is, the salesperson has already lost.
Right.
You're dead to them already. Like, there is no deal there. There is no honorable sales craft that converts that moment into a client. Sure, you might be able to manipulate them into it. You could be so sociopathic and they could be so desperate to get you out of their house they sign a contract, but you're not going to get any good referrals. They're probably going to cancel and they're definitely going to hate you. So the upfront contract solves this whole problem, because even if there was a misunderstanding of why we're meeting today, I'm giving you, Frumi, the option to go, actually, that's not really what I thought this meeting was about. I just wanted to catch up with a buddy from high school. And you go, oh, I'm so sorry. How have things been? Do you ever get married? Do you have kids like you wanted to? What'd you end up doing for your life? Like, you can salvage the relationship. And if you want to be technical about your sales craft, if you lay down good rapport for the next hour, maybe then they'll take a sales meeting. But we never want to waste our time, and we never want to burn relationships. And so the upfront contract gives us the opportunity to make sure you and I are on the same page. The second thing it does is it gets an upfront commitment. So if I say, and then at the end of this, what I'd really love to find out is if we should be working together and trying to figure that out, or if we should just end the conversation, and you say yes, if I talk to you for an hour and I do great discovery about all your pain, and I lay out potential solutions and a whole schedule of buying process so that we would know everything we'd have to do before you say yes or no, And if we do all that, and then I say, so how does your next Tuesday look for a follow-up meeting? And you go, let me think about it and call you back. I get to go, well, that's not really what we agreed on. You said that either we would lay out some next steps or we'd just say no. And look, no is fine. Usually when people tell me that they want to sit and think about it, they're really just afraid to say no because I'm so nice. So why don't we just say no and then move on? We can still be friends. And then they're like, well, yeah, probably. Let's just say no for now. And look, if that was the answer, no matter what you did, that was always going to be a no. You just got to find out early.
Yeah, I love it.
Or they're going to, or well, no, Robert, it's just Tuesday's bad for me. Let's do it Thursday. You're kind of allowing them to partner with you in that process.
So, Robert, this has been absolutely delightful. How can everybody find you? So, email address, website address, where would you like us to?
Reclaimingsales.com. There's a contact form there. MSPdojo.net, contact form there. I think if you go to LinkedIn and type in Robert Gillette, I'm sure you'll find me there too.
Well, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Everybody, you've been listening to Navigating the Sales Jungle of Business with myself, Dr. Fumi Rachel Barr, and Robert Gillette. Hope to see you next time, and bye for now.